Well, it's ended at Selhurst Park. Crystal Palace 2, Newcastle United 1. And I have got to say, I have had enough of the goddamn Pgmol and their stupid officials. We have waited literally 3 bloody weeks for this game over an international break, and we are back in Premier League action and back to the norm with the Pgmol being the same toxic pieces of shit that they always are in Newcastle United's games. And Andy Madley, hang your fucking head in shame. That officiating today was an absolute disgrace. 17 fouls by Crystal Palace in that match and not a single yellow card. 12 according to Andy Madley by Newcastle, and he dished out more yellow cards than Palace got in that game. And I've got to say, that is absolutely disgusting. He dished out a yellow card to Aaron Ramsdale. He dished out a yellow card to Joe Linton, which we all knew was going to be coming in the game. Joe Linton, was doing really well in the game to keep himself away from that yellow card, but Andy Madley found a cheap area to give it off of a dirty dive by a Crystal Palace player, and he gave that yellow card, and we just knew it was coming. It probably already had Joe Linton's bloody name on the yellow card before the match kicked off. That's how corrupt Andy Madley is. But, I mean, from literally leading the game and for a big portion of the game, we were ahead of the game, and there was barely any moments really in the game, but a couple of moments where Palace looked like, they did all right in the game, but for the huge portions of that game, we were dominating that game, and Palace have gotten themselves a cheap win, and a cheap win off the back of the Pgmol and their dodgy one-sided agenda against Newcastle United, which has been on show all season fucking long, and it is getting very annoying now, very tiring, and it's really getting to the point where, you just can't be asked to literally react to it, but I've got to react to it, obviously, because that is the whole idea of the channel, is that I've got to react to the games. But I mean, the Pgmol, they need to hang their head in shame, and it's become even worse since that baldy piece of crap, Howard Webb, Man United fanboy number one, has become the head of the Pgmol. Since Howard Webb has become the head of the Pgmol, there's been a lot more controversial decisions being done against Newcastle United in games, and that is not a coincidence at all that is happening. But something needs to change. It really does, because we should have been coming away from Selhurst Park today with a win in the bag, but because of that stupid, absolute officiating shit show, we are coming away on the end of a 2-1 loss against Crystal Palace. And I've got to say, Ramsdale pulled off some brilliant saves in that game. He really did. He pulled off some absolute worldy saves at points as well when he needed to. Willisula, brilliant bit of initiative to quickly flip his feet around and get the goal. Brilliant goal by him as well. And I've got to say, Willisula, really, really good game by the lad. Big Joe, like I said, did a really good game today as well. However, Anthony Gordon was off it for me. I don't know what was going on with him. He just didn't seem like the Anthony Gordon that, we've seen of late this season, and he seemed to be off of his game a bit. He was keep going back into the defensive midfield position when he needed to be out on the wing, and it was just very confusing on that one. So Anthony Gordon definitely needs to improve his game going into the next one against Bournemouth. But the penalty, I mean, is it a penalty? Yes, there's a pull on the shirt by Sven Botman. It is stupid that there is a pull on the shirt, but again, the Palace player goes down very, very easily as well. So it's kind of a 50-50 situation. Obviously, when it's looked at it on VAR by Craig Pawson as well, by the way, on VAR, they are obviously going to go with the decision of Palace penalty there. That's the obvious thing about it, you know, at the end of the day, they're obviously going to go with the Palace penalty. But I mean, we should have been coming away from that game today with a win in the bag. You know, really, really frustrating, really annoying, really angry with the way the officiating went on in the game, because it wasn't the performance by the lads. You know, the lads were really, really good. But like I say, Anthony Gordon just not being on his game today, you know, the lads did really, really well in the game, and it's very unfair that, you know, we've come away from that game on the end of a loss, and all because of poor officiating once again by the Pgmol, Andy Madley, Craig Pawson on VAR as well. You know, it's just never ending, and something needs to change with, you know, the officiating in the English game, because it is getting to a point now where we are literally being screwed every single week. We have been screwed every single week in this season, and it is getting very, very tiresome now. But let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. What did you think about the game? What was your standout moments in the game? What was a moment that really pissed you off in the game as well? And do you agree with us? Was Andy Madley, you know, really bad with the officiating today? Because I really think he was. And, you know, would you have given that as a penalty as well? I think, to be fair, if we have to look at it, you know, there was a pull on the shirt, so maybe it probably would have been a penalty. You know, at the end of the day, if that was the other way around, I would be probably screaming for a penalty there as well, to be honest. So if we're going to be, you know, fair and neutral on that, then I would say, you know, that I would be shouting for a penalty in that situation myself. But let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Hit like, share, subscribe to the channel, all that stuff. And I'll see you all for the next one. However, lads.